For more on this, let's bring in Evan Siegfried, Republican strategist and author of GOP GPS, and Doug Schoen, a former advisor to President Bill Clinton and a Fox News contributor. Great to see you both. You and I saw each other on Friday on the Fox News deck, and it was quite interesting.
You can't get rid of me.
Oh, no. Well, we're going to pick up right where we left off, which was pretty feisty. So let's start with what we know about these four men.
Sure.
You said in the break, I'm going to tell everybody what you said. You said Ambassador Bolton should be the one. Why?
Yeah, look, I think he politically and substantively and logically makes the most sense. Look, the other military officers are legitimate heroes, all three. But John Bolton has experience at the UN. He has experience at the highest levels of foreign policy. He is fluent with all the issues, and he is a hawk, and he is tough on Russia, and he's tough on North Korea, and tough on Iran. He would be best, in my judgment, and would serve America with great distinction.
Your
I would
thoughts?
echo everything that Doug just said on John Bolton. I think he would also calm a lot of the national security apparatus, which is a little bit worried with KT McFarland and now former national security advisor.
Why do you say
Flynn.
that?
Well, they haven't liked how the changes have occurred from Obama to Trump. The transition, they felt, was they were ignored and they were sort of waved off. At the same time, H.R. McMaster, who's up for this, he wrote one of the greatest books on Vietnam and the failures of Vietnam in Dereliction of Duty. It's required reading at West Point, and a lot of generals read it and took it into account, particularly David Petraeus, because it notes the failure of Vietnam because of the government being too involved, especially at the executive branch.
Interesting. You said that it changed your perspective. That's what you were saying as we were watching that report from Lauren. All right. We have a quick word from Ambassador Bolton, and I'm curious to hear your take on it because we had him on Outnumbered on Friday, and we were talking about Russia and some of the recent provocation that we've seen. Let's watch that.
I think the real threat here that does need a serious response is the deployment of these missiles that violate the INF Treaty from the 1980s. It's not the first of these violations, but it's very serious. It's a direct threat to the Europeans.
So how does that fit in, do you think, for Mr. Trump?
Well, Mr. Trump made clear on Thursday that he was re-evaluating his befriend Vladimir Putin's strategy. He was ready now to get tough on the Russians. Nobody better than John Bolton to do that, and the violation of the INF Treaty is an outrageous provocation.
And what about working with the rest of the team? Because that's something now that the president is starting to bring his cabinet together. You're going to have Rex Tillerson. You'll have others who, do you think, who fits in best with that, and how important is that?
That's very important. John Bolton is essentially the pipeline to the president on all matters of national security, be it coming from the State Department, the Defense Department, CIA,
if he gets
DNI,
this job.
if he got that job. And somebody who understands how Washington works, but has also already advised President Trump, that is a plus for the American people.
All right, now I want to get in, and this will probably make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, Doug.
Sure.
So there is a report now on Politico about Democrats inside your party having to quell, having to put up a wall among some of the others in your party.
That's right.
Not to talk about impeachment of this president. He's only been in office for a month.
Well, that's
what is going on in your party?
Well, it's what's going on in the country. Look, Donald Trump has had a rough and rocky start. Let's be clear. He's had a lot of turmoil and turnover. But that being said, Harris, the premise of your question is exactly right. The last thing we need now as a nation is talk of impeachment. It marginalizes the Democrats. This resist Trump at all costs movement is a big, big mistake. And it really takes the onus off the Republican failures and makes the Democrats look out of step.
I'm reading the words backfire on the Democrats. And I saw you do a little bit of a pivot there.
Right.
And I want to get your thoughts.
Well, the loony left is basically becoming a wild animal, which is uncontrollable by the more reasonable Democratic leaders, if there are any at this point. You see, when you go out and you push impeachment, you have to ask the question, for what? I have seen zero evidence of any sort of wrongdoing in President Trump's term. They think that somehow there is this big connection that Russia actually hacked the election and that Donald Trump is banning all Muslims. He's not. He didn't. Russia
He's
didn't hack
getting ready
the election.
to write a new executive order now.
Yes, to correct many of the mistakes from the
Are Democrats afraid of what's coming down the pike? Because, you know, they, in many cases, don't have the votes to get anything done.
They are afraid. And look, the president has the clear legal authority to do another executive order. He's going to be able to restrict immigration further, round up more illegals, do tax cuts, and proceed in ways that are inimical to democratic interests. The base wants an extreme reaction. And Harris, the word backfire is exactly right. It will hurt the Democratic Party in the long run if they push impeachment rather than substantive policy.
What should the Republicans do right now? Because you've got a Democratic Party, and I mean, I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it really, but this president said he could make a deal. You've got a Democratic Party who skipped, many of them, the inauguration. They're not coming to hearings. They're skipping out basically on what they were elected to do. And now there's this, well, we got to keep quiet. You called them the Looney Left, and Doug didn't even really flinch. But what do Republicans need to do at this point?
Well, aside from stop shaking our head in disbelief that they won't even come to the table and are having temper tantrums, we still should have an olive branch out there and say, we are willing to work with you, but you need to come to the table and let's talk about the big issues that the American people put us in office to talk about. We need to talk about tax reform, infrastructure, fixing Obamacare, because it's being a drain upon many people.
That's what the American people want. They want practical solutions. They want their taxes cut. They want their roads and bridges
Well,
fixed.
you say all that. You say all that, but how do you account for your party not stepping up?
Look, I don't like.
Not in every case.
I don't like the words "loony left," Harris. But Evan's
Tell
right.
Evan,
I
I
can't
didn't say
disagree.
it.
They are loony because there are areas they can contribute to consensus, and if the extreme left of the party would just back off and allow constructive legislation, particularly the 10 senators up in states that Donald Trump won, Democrats in states Trump won, they need to cooperate where possible. And unless and until that happens, they are facing trouble.
Why do you think they're not? Is there some sort of political gain? I mean, you've lost 1,000 seats across U.S. state houses, bicamerally in Congress, and the White House since 2009. What does it take?
Well, they believe it's like the Tea Party in 2010. Resist, resist, resist. And with Trump now
Yeah, but they have viable members in Congress.
Under 50%, their theory...
They're in the majority now.
Right, but their theory is they can bring him down because he's unpopular with the vast majority.
I actually did write in the New York Times. I was the first person to come out right after the Women's March and say this could be very much like the Tea Party. But I actually encourage Republicans to work with them to avoid any sort of blowback. Sure. And one of the points I put up, just to give you an idea of how crazy the Looney Left is, was that we could work together to make feminine hygiene products, such as tampons, tax exempt. And when it was passed here in New York in May of 2016, it was hailed as this victory for women. But the Looney Left said I was condescending to women and wasn't serious about women's issues and was perpetuating a war on women. It's hypocrisy to the highest level.
Look, we have issues that rise to the level of war and peace, how we finance our government, whether our roads and bridges are habitable and usable. All of these can be done and dealt with bipartisan effort. We need that. There's a basis to cooperate. If the Democrats and the Republicans can't get together, you know who loses? We all do as Americans, and that would be a great tragedy.
Wow. I see that you'll be buying dinner because his Democratic friends may not invite him anymore.
I'm a fiscal conservative, and Doug's party loves to spend money, so I'll...
Look, we did a balanced budget with Bill Clinton, welfare reform,
I'm going to
cut
move
the
on.
debt.
Good to see you both.